name is Eric Owens. I am the president of the American Distilling Institute. I am so honored to have Daniel Whittington with us today. One little piece of ADI business first. We are doing our spirits competition registration. We are in the final stages of that. It really is, I believe, one of the best people tell me this, the judges tell me this, one of the best competitions in the world. We really strive, it was started with the goal of giving written feedback to every entry and really does award the best of the best in each class. The registration is still going on for a couple weeks, so if you want to find out how your spirits stack up, please check that out on distilling.com. We have for the last 5 or 6 years been hosting the blending and maturation class with Nancy Fraley at Iron Root Republic. I believe that's the first place I met Daniel, and because I travel there regularly, we went and down to Austin and toured distilleries. And it was definitely the first time I went to the Crowded Barrel and walk over to this giant mystical magical building called the Wizard Academy. I was just blown away. And yeah, the Wizard Academy, everything around it, it's number one, it's this beautiful 4 or 5 story tall building on a hill in the scrub oak of
Yeah,
Texas.
it really is
Uh,
scrub
and
oak.
and then all the other stuff around it, the free wedding chapel. And, I was just like, I was there to visit a distillery and I'm like, what is this thing? And it was, maybe like 2 years or 3 years later, I went back to the place and after toured it again, and it really sort of sunk in. And I was like, I got to come back and check this out. And what they offer there is business classes, and just sort of their real focus is advertising and marketing. And I just wanted to learn more and to also check out their sessions there. And it is, some of, I hesitate to say fun, but business fun. I mean, it is definitely educational for it's a group. What it seems to me is it's a group of entrepreneurs. Your cohort in that class are all people that are running small businesses. They
Mhm.
have similar problems to you, and with bringing on Daniel as the chancellor, there's this undertone of the spirits industry in there. There's people in there that are real whiskey nerds. I mean, the amount of arguments I've gotten into about the fine details of whiskey production,
Oh, if I
consumption,
had a
and
nickel.
they'd go deep there. But yeah, so to go there, they have 2 and 3 day classes. You can stay on campus, and then the moment they open up that whiskey vault, and it shine. It's like the suitcase.
In
Oh, I'm blanking on the
the
name of the movie. The Quentin Tarantino Pulp
Yeah.
Fiction. It's like it's just glows, and there's literally thousands of whiskey bottles in there. It is
Mhm.
they have this thing. It's a little off-putting, I think, in the Wizard Academy and Magical Kingdoms, right? But I think, as you said,
Just to
that's sort
keep
of
the wrong
your
sort of people
filter.
out.
Yes. And so if you can get over the sort of that aspect of it, it's just really it's business fun
Mm.
blended together in summer day camp. So I just wanted to come on here for a few minutes and say how much I've personally enjoyed it and how much I've gotten out of those classes,
Yeah,
and
good.
definitely look forward to taking some more in the future. And so, with that, Daniel, thank you for all. Daniel's the onion, too. That's just like 1 or 2 outer layers on him. I mean, sitting on the patio, listening to him play guitar. Not that everybody will get that experience.
Yeah.
Yes, he
Yeah.
goes deep. So thank you so much for coming on here, and really look forward to your presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And
Thanks.
thanks, Todd, for reaching out. Um, Evidently, I can see questions that you guys put in. If one of you could type in chat so I could see how it shows up, that would be helpful for me because since I'm in presenter mode, I just get to look at my own picture. And when I look at where I can chat, it just says only people who can see it are hosts and panelists. But my name is Daniel Whittington. I'm the Chancellor at Wizard Academy and Whisky Marketing School. And uh, we're going to talk about building tribes and building community with the intention of marketing and growing your business. I do not have um, any slide presentation, so there's no PowerPoint or anything. And I want to make sure that if you guys have specific questions, I answer them all. So that's why I'm hoping that if you have anything you want to ask, put it into the chat and I'll answer it there, or maybe Todd can make sure that I see it. And if for some reason we end this thing and your question hasn't been answered, or after this is over, finally think of a question, which is usually how I work, then email me. It's daniel@wizardacademy.org, and I'll answer any of those emails that you guys send in, um, either saying, here's what I think the answer is, or I have no idea, but here's who I think you should talk to. So tribes. We speak about marketing and community and tribes at Wizard Academy in a specific context, which is what is a tribe? And this is sort of how we think of your customer base and who your people are, and that it has nothing to do with demographics or age range or income or anything. But what defines a group of people and takes them from a random assortment of humans into a tribe is a cohesive set of thought and beliefs, right? The same opinions about certain things. And when you start viewing a group of people on the way in which they overlap in that Venn diagram of thoughts and things that they all have in common, you quickly realize that age range, income, sex, or anything like that is effectively irrelevant. Anytime, especially in spirits industry, how many times have you met someone that was a customer of yours that never in a million years would you have picked them out of a group or imagined that this person would be one of your people, but they, it turns out, have self-selected into your group of people because usually it's because of they like your spirit. But when you start trying to market and communicate, often you get into consultants, or marketing experts or branding agencies, which we'll talk about that in a second. Um, and what they want to tell you is we need to find your target market. We need to find your target customer. We need to find exactly the right person for what it is that you do. And almost always their methods are in getting more and more specific about exactly who your person is, narrower and narrower. And those people you'll find tend to think of customer acquisition as sort of like a sniper rifle and an ever focused target. But the thing is, reaching large groups of people has never been about hunting. It's been about fishing. It's about throwing a net. And the wider the net you throw, the more likely you are to pull in your people. And even less than that, because I really, being a vegetarian, not all in on the hunting metaphors and fishing metaphors, but I will say, uh, I tend to think of this as there's a reason that you do what you do. And there's a reason that you care, and there's a worldview that you have. And I don't necessarily mean politically or religiously. I mean about sort of how the world functions and what's important, and what's worth investing your life in, and what's fun and what's interesting. There's a set of beliefs that you have, and that sort of have formed the basis of why you got into this industry when there were so many other options available to you in life. And that's going to be the magical thing that attracts people to you. And the way that you let people know is not in hunting people down and then targeting them and successfully acquiring them as a customer. The way that you reach large groups of people is by singing the song of your people. And then those who are your people or who are ready to decide that they're your people, they hear the song and they come to you. I think of it more, super nerd alert, I think of it more like the horn of Gondor, right? When it gets blown and then it gets heard, and then the next thing you know, here comes Gandalf riding with the armies to the rescue. So finding your tribe is about finding the kind of people who believe the way that you do about the industry and category that you're in. When we started the Whisky Marketing School, we started training whiskey sommeliers. I quickly started a YouTube channel about 6 months after that. And the goal was to show people, here's what we think about whiskey, to give them insight into, like, this is the character of the program. And it was also to sort of show the whiskey somms, here's how you talk about whiskey without being a snob or an asshole. And actually, I didn't ask Todd if cussing was allowed on these webinars. Sorry, Todd. It wasn't meant to explode and get big. It's just sort of accidentally did. But one of the main reasons it grew. Oh, I see the Q&A. Rohan, thank you. Another nerd in the group, not Gondor. Horn of Rohan. I love that someone felt the need to correct that. That's so good. The one thing that we said over and over and over, and this is one of the reasons I think that the channel grew, was the definition of good whiskey is whiskey you like, and the right way to drink it is however you prefer. And that right there became the song of our people. We sort of put into the world, here's what we think about whiskey, and here's what we think matters. And all of the people who saw the channel saw this idea and heard this thing get put out there and said, yes, 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 I agree. That's what I think too. I want to be a part of that community because here's people who think the way that I think about things. And that's the definition of a tribe right there, a self-selected group of people. If you really want to go down the nerd path, go hang out at a Renaissance festival, at a Ren fair. Go to any Ren fair. And what you're going to find at that Ren fair is, yeah, maybe there's a certain core group of Ren fair people who are super hardcore and this is the life they lead. But the vast majority of attendees at a Ren fair are just people who think this is fun and once a year get the chance to go dress up in costume and go roam around drinking mead out of horns and, you know, watching people on horseback knock each other around in suits of armor. And the demographic of people at a Ren fair is shocking. The age groups and the kind of people you would never imagine would show up at a Ren fair, and but yet here they are. They've self-selected, and that's kind of the idea. If this is a human thing, finding tribe. Now, you find them by the one thing you have in common, not by character, like a caricature of who your customer is. This is the shortest version of this. Sorry, I'm not going into more detail on it, but I'm going to jump to how do you find them? And the answer is you show, don't tell. It's the fastest way to say this. When you are, okay, the one way to make everyone feel like you're not honest is to say, trust me, I'm honest. Right? I mean, this is the famous movie trope with the guy in the background. He's like, hey, he's cool. Don't worry about him. And what do we all know at that moment in the movie? That guy's not cool. And that's where it's all going to go wrong. How do you let people know you are something? Like, hey, I'm an honest dealer, or hey, I care about the customer, right? The worst possible way is to say, I'm honest, or we care about the customer. That's the worst possible way. So how do you let people know you're honest if you are honest and that's an important thing for you? You say something that only an honest person would say. And then you let the listener or the potential customer or the audience in this example come to the conclusion, oh man, that person is honest, because only an honest person would say something like that. If you want a spirits example, look at the marketing for Lafroig on the opinions welcome, and you can just Google this. It's amazing. Uh, if you know Lafroig whiskey, it's a super peaty Islay Scotch, and it's definitely not a for everyone whiskey. It's not an easy drinker unless you're used to this kind of thing. It's briny and smoky and sort of a punch in the throat until you get to love it. And then you get past all those huge, heavy upfront markers and you start to find fruit and the wine and the sweetness behind it. But it's a slog at first if you're new to, especially if you're new to whiskey. They could have gone down the path of trying to convince everybody, we're not that much of a struggle. We're not that hard. No, trust us, you'll like it. But instead, what they did was they just owned that what they are is a whiskey that's not for everybody, and they're a little punchy. And so they took all these random reviews of their whiskey that described things like it's like making love to a cigar smoking walrus, or it's like a damp seagull's armpits, or like drinking mermaid bathwater, right? And they took those reviews of their whiskey and they made it their marketing campaign. Now that they've said that, what do they not have to say? A lot of things, right? They don't have to say that they're a punchy, aggressive, briny, salty scotch, because drinking, a mermaid's bathwater or a damp seagull's armpits, that says it for you. What do they also not have? There's a whole other layer of subtext there, which is, hey, we're not for everybody and we're proud of that. In the beer industry, it was, Arrogant Bastard Ale did this ages ago, and they did it really well. You find your people by talking and celebrating the things that you care about and that are magical for you, about life and about what matters. And then the people who agree with you, they hear those things. And you tell them what you believe, not by saying, we believe this, but by saying something that someone who believes that would say. It sounds like an extra step dance. Let me put it this way. When we teach this, when we're writing, most of the mission statements, I guess, is most of the mission statements you see are the worst writing on the planet. Because they say the super generic, we care about the customer, we care about quality, we care about, putting ourselves into every step of the process. Or in the distilling industry, it's we care about grain to glass, and we care about authenticity, and we care about, blah, blah, blah. And there's huge problems with that. The first one is you're not going to find anybody who disagrees with that. Everybody who makes a spirit says we care about quality and we care about our customers and we care about the quality of the production process, because you would be a fool not to. It would be ridiculous to have any other opinion. So that just goes without saying. And two, it doesn't mean anything. Putting the customer first, or we care about quality, it doesn't mean anything. You can't picture anything when you read the sentence, we care about quality, right? Now here's an example. If I say, we care about grain to glass, we care about every step of the process, mental engagement with that as a reader or a listener is zero. It's just this, for lack of a better explanation, it's a nothing sentence that sounds important, but your brain can't picture it. So this is super nerdy, but when you read things, especially when you listen to things, what happens is what you're reading gets displayed in your brain in the visuospatial sketchpad, and you picture something. And the more vivid the description, the more you can picture the thing. And a sentence like, we believe in the quality of production and paying attention to all the steps of the process, you can't picture anything unless you're an industry human. And even as an industry human, that's almost impossible to picture. I know all the steps of the process. And when someone says we care about process, I still have to struggle to think about the process. If instead you say something that is very tangible and you let someone picture it, now you have mental engagement and now you have ownership of mind share and mind space. And I'm going to give you an example because even right now, this is hard to picture and I could feel it as I'm saying it. You want to give your listeners and your audience and your consumers the assumption that they're not idiots. And so instead of saying something like, we believe in the process, we believe in grain to glass, you say, we know the names of our farmers, right? Or you name the farmer. We only buy grain not from local farmers. You buy grain from John so and so, whose farm is called this, and he lives at this address. I mean, maybe don't give his address away, but that's the difference. This is why so many mission statements stay so top level and so big that they can't be pictured. And what you need is a highly visual, highly tangible example of what you mean when you say we mean that thing. If a barrel's not ready, then it doesn't go into a bottle. That's a statement of quality, right? That's much better than saying we only believe in quality whiskey or we only put out the best. If I say I went outside and there was a lot of birds in the parking lot, that's a vague, heavy, mushy sentence. But if I say I went outside and there were 1,734 birds in the parking lot, that's a very specific sentence. That's got a lot more weight and a lot more power to it. So how do you get into the habit of doing this as a creator, of figuring out what you believe? Because you need to start with, and Simon Sinek said this, go watch Simon Sinek's TED Talk. It's, I think, the most or one of the most watched TED Talks ever. And he did a great job of putting this concisely, which was people don't care about, they care about what you believe, why you do what you do. And that's what most people don't talk about. And so they write generic mission statements and generic customer service things. And so the exercise that you go through to figure these things out is you sit down and you say, we believe, and then fill in the blank. We believe you should know the name of your farmer who makes your grain. We believe that Texas has a higher impact on whiskey than most other parts of the world. And so we have to take a different care of our barrels to accommodate an older age statement. This is really wordy, but you write down the things that you actually care about and you make them something that you can be pictured and that an outsider who doesn't know can see and tell what you're talking about. And then you take the we believe off the front of it and you've written your entire mission statement of the things that you actually care about and the things that you think matter. This is show, don't tell. This is all great script writing. This is all great TV writing. Show it, don't tell it. If you have to say it, then you've already lost a step. Real quick, any questions on that part? I've got two more things that I'm going to hit, and I'm going to keep it pretty quick. The second thing I'm going to hit is let's talk about how to promote and the styles of promotion. And the final thing is wrapping up. It's about people, not spirits. Those are the only two things I'm going to hit after this. And if you don't have questions, then we'll move pretty fast through this. We'll be done at probably the 45-minute mark. But I'd feel free to put them in there. I can see the questions now. Oh, great link. I just saw the link that got put in there. Yes, that's the one, exactly one I was talking about. Okay. Let's talk about promoting. Say you found your tribe and you figured out what matters to you. The next big failure in reaching these people is all great artists, and I would put distillers in the artist category. I mean, maybe scientific artists, but in my experience, I came from the music industry for a couple of decades, and my experience has been that the more I meet craft distillers, the more I feel this sense of deja vu of having spent most of my life with musicians and artists, because I think about the world in very similar ways. And artists are a lot about self-expression, and they want to bring this thing to the world that matters to them and that they care about. And that's a good thing. But you don't gain a foothold in people's brains and minds and hearts until you can provide them with how what they care about and what you care about overlap. No one's going to care about what you care about just because you care about it. And we all know this because we've all had conversations with people who are not in this industry and watching their eyes glaze over as you talk about distillation and product creation. But yet there's this false idea or this false sense that if people could just see what we do and why we care and why it's so important, then they will also care and then they will buy our product. That is the biggest fallacy in small product marketing, which is we just need to show people and educate the consumer and show them how important it is and why it matters. And so I would say this is where we dance a line, which is Niels Bohr is a Danish Nobel winning physicist said, and I'm paraphrasing, the opposite of a fact is a falsehood, but the opposite of a profound truth may very well be another profound truth. Does it matter what you do and do you care about it and how much attention to detail you pay on the process? Yes, absolutely it matters, because you can't follow up any kind of success or sales success or hit if there's not quality behind it. That's called one hit wonder, right? You stumbled onto something magical, you can never repeat it because you don't understand the process. So to have longevity in the industry, you do have to create something that cracks through to the general public, but you can't back that up without quality. So do you need to know the process? Yes. Do you need to understand why you do it? Yes. Do you need to have reasons for why it matters and why you did this instead of become a lawyer? Yes. But that's not how you reach the general consumer, because that's all about you. Now, I'm going to tell you where you use that information next, but I sort of speak of this as outside the club and inside the club, and I don't like that language, but haven't found a better way to talk about it, which is I've also talked about it as the iceberg principle, above the water and below the water. So there's two different kinds of messaging. There's the messaging for the people who have already self-selected as a part of your group. Let's set that over here. And then there's the messaging for the people who haven't heard about you, but are probably your people if you could just reach them. That's mass marketing. Now, I'm going to just real quick put a little note in here, which is everyone talks about advertising and marketing and they use those words interchangeably. Those words should never be used interchangeably. Marketing is about who you are, why, and why anyone should give a shit. Advertising is mechanical delivery of your messaging. If you don't have a message, advertising is pointless. Or as we say at Wizard Academy, if you don't have anything to say, then for the love of God, don't let a consultant convince you to say it. You need to know who you are and why and what matters and what's important before you spend any money trying to tell it to anybody else. In mass marketing, and what I mean is outreach marketing, trying to reach people who haven't heard of you. This is, labels. This is, shelf talkers. This is industry trade ads, and full page ads, or this is signage on booths. Anything where you have the ability to touch someone who doesn't yet know about you, but you think should know about you. You need to stop talking about you. And I don't care how cool and how powerful what you're doing is, or even how unique it is. You need to talk about how their interaction with you and their experience with you is going to change their world, or why it should overlap with what matters to them. Now, the good news is these are not entirely two separate things. There's really a Venn diagram overlap. We cared about whiskey when we started the YouTube channel. We also thought that whiskey is more of a secondary character than a first character. The first character is the interaction you're having with people right in front of you. Whiskey is great, but it's a secondary character. And the idea of the snobbery of like there's only one way to drink and there's only one right way to appreciate something was the antithesis of what we believed. The Venn diagram overlap with how we communicated with the rest of the world was, hey, we believe that you are the decider of what matters to you, and you are the decider of what you like and don't like. And the group of people who went, yes, yes, I agree with that. I wish that was said more, because I join all these online forums and all I get is shamed for the bottle of Johnny Walker Red that I just bought. Or I get shamed for being excited that I just got to try Pappy Van Winkle. And once you become, the trusted source, or you become the person who's like, yes, these people believe what I believe, then the next step is, I wonder what else they believe, or I wonder who are these people and what are they doing? And so when you're designing your marketing and your messaging, you need to find the way in which the things you care about have a big overlap with the general way in which we are all human. And you don't do it with your strengths. Now, I'm going to do just a small side note, which is, do you talk about how much attention to detail you paid on the process of making things? Yes, that belongs on your website, and it belongs in, maybe your social media channels on the rare moments when you just give a lot of insight into what you do. Because once I've decided that you're my people, then I want to be rewarded on the deep dive. So if I decide, how many times have we seen this? You've tried a product, you're like, this is actually really cool. Or you've stumbled onto a marketing thing, you're like, this is actually interesting. So you go start to research it. And what you find is someone wrote a really great campaign, but this brand has no depth. Maybe you discovered that they were sourcing but didn't tell anybody, or maybe and so everything is not actually true, that you this amazing story that you fell in love with, you go down and you look deeper and there's just nothing there. It feels almost like a betrayal. So if you are doing real things, then you need to be able to provide that in places where people who discover you and want to know more can go looking and then are rewarded for their inquiry. They find out, or as we say at the Academy, if you win the heart, the mind will follow. You reach out to these people, you win their heart, and you win their heart on the ways in which you're human and the ways in which we all experience the human experience, or all have the human experience. But then when they dig deeper, you want to sort of reward them for being like, yes, you did fall in love with these people for a reason. There's quality, there's depth, there's context here. So you need all those things, and they are very important, but that's an insider's delivery. That's for the people who have already self-selected that they're a part of your tribe. That's not how you reach out and find new people. It's like a first date. You spend the whole time talking about yourself on a first date. There's not going to be a second date. So this is where it gets hard. And this is what separates people who can do it from people who this is too scary. And it's okay if it's too scary. But the rewards for doing it are so powerful, they'll change you. When you try to reach out to people, you can't lead with your strengths. We admire people's strengths, but we connect with people's weaknesses and vulnerabilities and failings. It's your flaws that make you uniquely you. It's I can't remember who said it, but it was a quote around families. All happy families are the same, but all broken families are broken uniquely. It's positive traits are all the same, but the way in which you're broken, in the way that only you are broken, is the way in which the people who are also broken in that way identify with you and see themselves and are made to be to feel not alone in their world experience. And it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable about your flaws and your weaknesses. Now, what do I mean by flaws and weaknesses? I don't mean like you need to tell everybody that you struggle with caffeine and or you have a bad relationship with your family. I mean business weaknesses, which is a little easier. But being a startup and not having any money and not being able to compete with the big brands and not being able to order the equipment that you wish you had and having to make do, trying to figure out how to make world class pot still whiskey, but using a really small still because you couldn't afford the 500-gallon steam jacketed one, so you're having to make do and you're doing 15 runs to fill a 15-gallon barrel. Right, these struggles and these weaknesses, you don't hide them and you don't try to pretend like no, I'm just like the big guys. You talk about the struggle and you talk about the weakness, you talk about the flaws. Those are the ways in which you're human. You If you don't have the ability to fund a giant marketing campaign, then when you start talking to the people who self-selected as a part of your tribe and your distillery, you make them your marketing team. Guys, we can't afford a big marketing campaign. We're just too small. So you're it. You, the people who love us, you're it. If you don't tell more people, we don't go anywhere. So how can we help you? How can we help reward you for telling more people? How can we talk about this in a different way? One of the most powerful starts to something that I saw in a distillery was I got tired of building someone else's legacy and story. And I watched my family members and, my elders burn their life away working for someone else and end and be given a watch. And that just wasn't the world that I wanted to live in. I wanted to live in a world where the work of my hands uh, and the rewards of that effort went to me and my family and our legacy. That's a powerful truth, and it ties into a very human need to have what you do outlast you and be a part of your story and not just a part of someone else's story. Um, that's how you talk about something that is in the overwhelming human condition. What made Jimi Hendrix an astoundingly magical guitar player was the way in which he was a broken guitar player. I don't know if you've studied guitar, but Jimi Hendrix's rhythm was all over the map. The guy could not stay on a click to save his life. Um, and he played his guitar upside down and backwards. And so his weird bends and his weird pull offs were all wrong and in all the wrong order and not good guitar practices. But damn, if it didn't make him one of the most amazing guitar players you've ever heard in your life. Um, the same thing with BB King. You see BB King play, and it was simple and it was classic. And he wasn't doing the crazy Mach 10 Eric Johnson flashy guitar riffs. But that's what made it so powerful. That's why you admire Eric Johnson, but you're in love with BB King. In distillation, when you've got all the money and all the equipment and all the power and all the technology, sure, we can admire you, but now you're no longer a part of the human experience. And that's really hard to connect with. So showing off only your strengths, that doesn't really get you anywhere, and it doesn't really help you connect with people and help them feel seen. And remember, and that's how I'm going to end this thing, which is remember that this whole story is a human story, not a spirit's story. The was it Freddie Johnson talked about neat when he said that he went to go open up a bottle with his family, and he opened this really rare bottle of whiskey and he poured just a little bit for all of them. And his dad, I think it was, said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, this is a really special bottle. I don't want to waste it." And his dad said, "No, we are the fragile part of this story. It's the humans. There will always be whiskey. There will always be more special whiskey. There will always be spirits and new distilleries and new products, and there will always be people who care about production and process. But it's the human part of the story that makes this powerful. And humans want to be seen. They want to be known, including us. This is why we make products and then we share them with the world. It's this no different than an artist writing a song and putting it out into the world, or a painter painting a painting and hanging it and trying to sell it to someone to put on their wall. Humans want to be seen and want to be known. And if you can find the way to make people feel seen by playing their song effectively, then you can give them power and a voice, and they will follow you to the ends of the earth, uh, which is why it has to be real, because otherwise this is an exercise in massive manipulation, and that is reprehensible. Um, so it has to be who you are. It has to be real. It can't be a made-up shtick. It has to be why you got into this and why it matters and why you're going to die on this hill. And you have to be vulnerable enough to share it, and you have to talk about it in the way in which it is the human experience instead of just your own particular set of preferences. And if you can do that, then you will have given voice to the tribe of the people who see the world the way that you do. And then you will be able to present to them the spirit that they should be drinking along with those experiences. Whiskey is the secondary thing. Spirits are the secondary thing that are a part of the experience of being human and in relationship and in connection and community with others. And that should be the business that we're in. And that is all that I have to say. If you got any questions, we'll give you a little bit of time here to put them in. If you want to ask a question not in the public forum, my email is daniel@wizardacademy.org. And thank you. It's been a pleasure.